The city of Los Angeles looked calm that night. Streetlights reflected off the wet asphalt. Cars moved slowly through empty roads. And somewhere in the middle of that silent city, a heavily armored cash truck rolled through the darkness, carrying what people believed was millions of dollars. But what happened next would shock the entire city. Because within minutes, bullets would start flying, cops would die, and one of the most intelligent criminal masterminds in history would begin a robbery so perfect. Even the FBI wouldn't realize they had been robbed. The truck suddenly stopped outside a small donut shop. Two armed guards stepped out, laughing casually as they walked inside for food. The other two stayed behind inside the armored truck, watching the streets carefully. Then a black car appeared. Four masked men stepped out slowly. Calm, focused, professional. The moment the guards walked back outside, guns were pointed directly at their heads. Inside the truck, one guard panicked and secretly called the police. But before backup could arrive, one of the robbers walked toward the armored vehicle, carrying heavy equipment. The guard inside refused to open the door. That was his final mistake. The thief drilled into the glass, hooked the cable onto the windshield, and ripped it clean off using a car. The terrified guard tried to escape, but a single gunshot echoed through the street. He dropped instantly. Within seconds, police sirens exploded through the city, and then chaos began. The robbers opened fire with military precision. Bullets ripped through patrol cars. Officers fell one after another. These weren't ordinary criminals. Their movements were too clean, too tactical, too perfect. These men had military training. After the shootout, the robbers escaped with the armored truck, but before leaving, they planted explosives behind them, destroying every possible fingerprint and piece of evidence. When they finally reached their hideout, the team leader Roy exploded with anger. The plan was never supposed to involve killing cops. Now the entire city would hunt them. But then the audience learned something shocking. The armored truck they stole was completely empty, not a single dollar inside, which meant this wasn't a robbery. It was preparation for something much bigger. Roy's smartest teammate, Tony, calmly suggested sending someone back to the crime scene to see how police reacted. Roy agreed immediately. That's because Tony wasn't just a getaway driver. He was the brain nobody noticed. Meanwhile, across the city, Detective Nick was living a completely different kind of war. Nick was feared inside the police department. Reckless, violent, obsessive, the kind of detective criminals prayed they would never meet. But his personal life was collapsing. One night, Nick secretly climbed through his own window after cheating on his wife again. While eating from a fridge, he accidentally sent a romantic message to his girlfriend directly to his wife. Everything exploded instantly. His wife grabbed the children and walked out forever. Nick sat alone on the couch in silence. Then the phone rang. Multiple officers were dead. A cash truck had been hijacked, and the city needed him. The moment Nick arrived at the crime scene, he noticed something strange. The truck was empty. So why would trained killers risk murdering cops for an empty vehicle? Nick instantly realized one thing. This crew wasn't stealing money. They were planning something far bigger. As investigators searched the destroyed crime scene, they found no fingerprints, no DNA, no evidence. The robbers had erased everything. That's when Nick demanded every CCTV recording from the area. Far away, hidden in the shadows, Bosco secretly photographed Nick and his team before sending the pictures to Roy. The hunters were now studying each other. Roy researched Nick carefully and discovered something terrifying. Nick never gave up on cases, ever. The deeper Nick investigated, the clearer the pattern became. Every robbery in Los Angeles over the past few months carried the same signature: clean execution, military tactics, no evidence. Nick concluded the criminals were former soldiers. Soon, one name appeared in the files: Roy, an ex-military operative who had recently left prison. And strangely, the robberies only started after Roy got released. Nick finally had his target. Then another name surfaced: Tony, a bartender with connections to Roy. Nick immediately visited the bar where Tony worked. At first, he acted friendly, pretending to be just another customer. Tony stayed calm. But the moment Tony left work and sat inside his car, Nick smashed him unconscious. Tony woke up in a hidden room surrounded by loud music, dancers, alcohol, and armed detectives. Nick sat directly in front of him. Then came the question: who are you working for? Tony smiled nervously. You got the wrong guy. Nick slammed photographs onto the table. Pictures of Tony standing beside Roy. The room went silent. Still, Tony denied everything. That's when Nick lost patience. He threw everyone out of the room and grabbed Tony by the throat. We're not taking you to jail, Nick whispered coldly. We'll keep torturing you until you talk. Tony finally broke. He admitted he worked as the team's driver during robberies, but he claimed he didn't know the full plans. According to Tony, Roy only contacted him shortly before jobs. He drove. He got paid. That was it. Nick didn't fully believe him, but he needed Tony alive. So instead of arresting him, Nick forced Tony to become an informant. Now the game became dangerous, because Tony was secretly playing both sides. Soon, Roy gathered his crew outside the largest federal bank in Los Angeles. The building looked impossible to rob. Massive security, armed guards everywhere, advanced surveillance systems. Roy explained something terrifying. Every dollar inside that bank was tracked through serial numbers. If stolen money appeared anywhere in the world, authorities could trace it instantly. But then Roy revealed the genius part of the plan. Every day, the bank destroyed millions of damaged bills after removing their serial numbers from the system permanently. Destroyed money had no record, no tracking, no evidence, which meant if they stole those bills before destruction, they would own millions of completely untraceable cash. The crew sat there stunned. This wasn't robbery anymore. This was genius. To prepare for the heist, Tony got himself hired as a delivery worker near the federal bank. During a food delivery, he secretly hid equipment inside the building, but Nick's surveillance team noticed Tony entering the bank. Now Nick grew nervous. He knew these men were insane enough to attempt the impossible. Days later, tension exploded during a dinner gathering. Nick intentionally approached Tony in front of Roy's entire crew, pretending they knew each other casually from the gym. Instantly, suspicion spread across the table. Exactly what Nick wanted. That night, Roy dragged Tony back to the hideout at gunpoint. "Did you talk to the cops?" Tony barely survived the interrogation, but instead of killing him, Roy gave him a shocking order. Tell the police they planned to rob Pico Rivera Bank on Friday. It was a trap, and Nick walked straight into it. Friday arrived. Police flooded Pico Rivera Bank, while Roy's crew stormed inside. Hostages screamed, guns pointed everywhere. Roy demanded money and a helicopter, while threatening executions. Outside, Nick prepared for war. Then suddenly, a gunshot echoed from inside the bank. Police believed a hostage had been murdered. Pressure exploded instantly. But the truth was far darker. The entire hostage situation was fake. While police focused on the bank, Roy's crew escaped underground through tunnels carrying stolen cash. At least that's what everyone thought, because the real robbery hadn't even started yet. Using the armored truck from the beginning of the story, Roy's men disguised themselves as security personnel and drove directly toward the Federal Reserve Bank. Inside the truck were cash boxes, supposedly carrying money from Pico Rivera Bank. Hidden inside one of those boxes was Tony, once inside the accounting department. The crew cut the building's power. Cameras malfunctioned. Workers evacuated. Tony climbed out silently. He moved fast. The damaged bills waiting for destruction were packed into bags and hidden inside garbage containers. Millions of dollars. Untraceable forever. By the time security restored power, everything looked normal. The official cash count matched perfectly. Nobody realized the destroyed money bags were gone. Tony escaped through a ventilation system, disguised once again as a harmless food delivery worker. The robbery was complete, and nobody noticed. Meanwhile, Roy followed the garbage truck, carrying the hidden money bags. But then everything collapsed. Tony was captured by Nick's team during the escape. Under brutal pressure, Tony finally betrayed Roy's location. Soon, police cornered Roy in a violent shootout across the streets of Los Angeles. Bullets flew everywhere. Bosco died. Officers died. Cars crashed. Nick chased Roy through shipping containers until finally shooting him down. Roy collapsed, bleeding heavily. Nick ordered him to surrender. Roy raised his gun one last time. Nick unloaded his weapon. Roy died instantly. The case appeared finished. The FBI arrived and confirmed something unbelievable. No money was stolen. According to official records, the robbers died for garbage. The worst part? Nick realized he could never arrest Tony, because officially no money was stolen. There was no evidence, no serial numbers, no crime. The movie ends in London. Tony now works peacefully inside another bar beside a diamond exchange company. One night, a wealthy employee from the diamond company walks in exhausted after work. Tony smiles politely and offers him a free drink. And in that moment, we realize something terrifying. Tony is already planning the next robbery. Maybe the perfect criminal doesn't wear a mask. Maybe he serves you a drink while secretly learning every weakness you have. And by the time you realize it, he's already gone.